I'm not gonna have any about talking too long after what Streeter did. She went 6 times more than what we were allotted. I'll try to keep mine quick and short so we can catch back up. Good job, Streeter. So, class of 70 through 79, stand up. Well, some people stand up, took 6 years, right, Ron? I'm just kidding, it only took me 5. Well, the 70s were the chance to celebrate this building being here 50 years. So in 76, Mike Norman can tell you that was 50 years of celebrating. What we're celebrating now is 100 years. So I think that was pretty neat about the 70s. The 70s started out with Mr. Lockaby, which we heard a few minutes ago. Mr. Lockaby was the principal here. That was in 70, 71, and over Christmas of 71, Mr. Lockaby passed away, which was horrible. He had been here a long, long time. And Mr. Bird, who was actually the first assistant principal ever to be at Hendersonville High School, took his place after Christmas in 72. So it was an interesting start of the decade right there. Mr. Bird only lasted a year and a half, and he went on to a higher position. And Mr. Wilson came in and took over in 73 and was here for, I think, 18 years. So he did a great job too. So those were the 3 principals that did it in the 70s, all good guys. And like I said, the assistant principalship started in 1971 and continues. Now there's more than just one. There's 2 and 3 sometimes. So I think that's pretty neat. School started at 8:30 in the morning. You went to homeroom. You stayed till 8:45. You went to first period at 10 till 9. You started first period. So that was pretty neat. Lunch lasted 30 minutes. Unless there was a chance to keep it going because nobody was getting fed, so they extended it. Kind of neat stuff. That was the 70s, early 70s. During the 70s, they built some buildings. The V building, which is no longer there, was out here. And as Mr. Orr said, there was a swamp out here. It was called a little bit different back in those days, but there was a swamp that ran through the campus. And those of you that were able to walk from this building to the gym, the rock gym as they call it, we call it the old gym, you walked right through that mess that was the swamp. And that was taken up by the V building. And when they were building the V building, they had no idea that there was a swamp there. So they had to put in extra pipes just to be able to build the building there. But then as the building sat there, it went like that. The new building that's there now, I told them about it. They said they were going to fix it, but they came back to me later and said, you know, you were right. We're going to have to do something exceptional to take care of that swamp out there. It's still there, but they did, they put some stuff in there to keep that building from collapsing by not putting a building there for the most part. And you'll notice that if you haven't already noticed that building's no longer there. The gym, the new gym, which is the main gym now, was built in the mid-70s. I think it was my senior year, they started putting it in, and they closed off all the front of the gym, which was a great area. And you had to walk around to the back, one of those back doors, and enter the gym to go to a ball game back in those days. That was a big, big change. You went from having a big area out front to having a back door to come in to the gym. And Miss Hensley's and Mr. Coach Hunt's offices were gone. They just put a wall up. It was really neat back in those days. Academics. Somebody already mentioned this. More graduates from Hendersonville High School went to college compared to 3 other high schools. I'm not saying where. I didn't say where, there's no need of that. But back in those days, that's what happened. That's changed, which is really good, but back in those days, that was what was going on. We had Bible classes here. Miss Ship, how many of you remember Miss Ship? Yeah, she retired in the mid-70s, so Bible classes went away. Latin classes, Miss Oates, how many of you remember Miss Oates? She passed away in the mid-70s, but Latin came back later in the 80s. There was a smoking area, which Streeter talked about a little bit. It was over by the fire escape over on that side, but in the 70s it moved in underneath the office. I have no idea why. There is no smoking area anymore. Ping pong tables at lunch out on the track. If you wanted to go play ping pong, you went out on the track and played ping pong. That was a couple of years. Then it left, but it came back in the 80s. Sundial was the center of attention at lunch. If you hung out by the sundial. There was a jukebox in the cafeteria. You could put a dime in and hear any song you wanted to. How many of you remember the jukebox? Not as many because it was only there a couple of years. That's true, toward the late 70s. Patton Park moved in out there where it still is or was. The freshmen went swimming out there in the late 70s and the early 80s. If you were a freshman, you got to go swimming for PE class. The bus took you out there first period, you froze to death, but you got to go out there and swim at Patton Park in the 70s. Study halls. Everybody in here had a study hall. It ended in the 70s. You could no longer be in a study hall in the late 70s. You could be an office assistant, but you could not be in a study hall. The band room was attached to the cafeteria. It cut the cafeteria in half back in those days. There was a tennis court out by the new gym. When it got put in, they put a tennis court in. It was a real tennis court. You could play tennis there. Driver's ed, the car that Mr. Blankenship drove changed from a straight shift to an automatic in the 70s. And I remember when I was taking it, we had to take Mr. Blankenship home. If you had him during lunchtime, you had to take him to his house in the summer so he could eat, and we'd sit out in the car and wait for him to eat lunch. And I'm not joking, I couldn't make something like that up. Speaking of Mr. Blankenship, in the 70s, there were some great teachers, which you've already heard, that retired, changed the school a lot. Mr. Swalford retired, Miss Westmoreland, Miss Croft, Mr. Blankenship, Miss Hensley, Miss Ship, I could keep going. But those were main teachers at Hendersonville High School in the 60s and 70s, and they retired by the middle 70s. It really changed the school a lot. Not saying it got any worse, it just changed. The arts and band, which we heard about, they were top in their competitions throughout the 70s and still remain there. The senior play with Mr. Orr running it went to musicals. And 50-something years later, what are we doing? Musicals. So he started something that will remain here forever. What a great part of your career. Make sure you're in the senior play, because that was a memory for everybody. And if you missed out on it, you really missed out on something important. Let's see. State championships, we talked a little bit about that. There are only 2 in the 70s, 2 groups. Boys track won a couple, and boys basketball won 1. That was all the state championships they won in the 70s. But the reason that was, is we were a 1A school, and we had to play 3A ball all the way through because of one of the coaches that said we shouldn't be a 1A school, we should be a 3A school. I still don't say nice things about that person. But we still competed in everything and did well. Coaches, Coach Hunt, Coach Pardue, Miss Hensley, Coach Brentnall, Mr. Johnson, I could keep going. Mr. Brooks, I could keep going, but I'm not. But just remember those names. As Streeter said, back in those days, the 4th of July, the fireworks were on the campus, right over on the side. They did move it over to Church Street when we were in the 70s. It wasn't on the baseball field. It was over by the Church Street. Traditions, they still exist that were here. still enter assembly seniors singing the alma mater. They still do that. There's still move up, exactly like you knew it back in those days, like you do it in these days. It was just like that in those days. Freshman orientation, which was before school started, it was there. It's a little different. Back in those days, if you came on campus, you got a pink belly if you were not careful. You had to sing to the seniors. It was not fun. Senior steps, they still get painted. They're painted right now. Victory ribbons, no longer with us, but victory ribbons were on sale, and you could buy as many as you wanted to. And boy, a lot of people did. They were a dime a piece. Pep rallies still going on. Spirit stick went out to the class that was the most spirited. The 70s was when seniors got out for lunch early. They do that now all the time. But in the late 70s, that's when that started. Also got off-campus lunch on Fridays. The seniors did. No, everybody's nodding their heads. You guys don't remember that from the 70s. I didn't get to do it. I know that. But the late 70s, it did happen. And the last thing I will say about the 70s is the red and white. It still went on. It was still a main part of this campus. It was a great thing. It still is, but it was something to be remembered. The last thing I'll say about the 70s is I feel sorry for anyone that did not get to go to school here, at least for a year, because they really, really missed out, and they continue to miss out to this day. So, go Bearcats.